Thank you for joining us for The Sky Above, where we will tell you everything happening in the sky this upcoming month so you can plan ahead and know when to look up. Here's what's heading your way right now on this May episode. Have you heard the term once in a blue moon? There's a reason we say that, and it's happening this month. We'll tell you where that comes from and how May's full moon schedule plays a part. Plus, a meteor shower will send flashing sights into the night sky this month. We'll tell you when you should look up. And later, our 4 NASA astronauts are back on Earth after a historic mission to the moon. We recap the Artemis II mission and show you what's next as NASA works to establish a presence on the moon. Thank you for joining us. I am joined, as always, by NASA Solar System Ambassador Keith Crum, and also member of the Seattle Astronomical Society. Keith, as always, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Let's start where we always do, with the full moon. Or should I say, moons.
2 full moons in May. So we have May 1st, the flower moon.
Okay.
In the Native American culture, we always like to mention that the budding moon, the egg-laying moon, and the planting moon.
Okay.
So those are good. Now,
self-explanatory as well.
Yeah. On the 31st, we have the blue moon. So 2 moons means a blue moon at the end of the month.
And that is the thing I think that I want everybody to really pay attention to. 2 full moons this month. And that is rare. We know that the moon is typically on that cycle of 29 and a half days. Yeah. So on average, when we have about 29 and a half days per month, we get 1 a month. But May is special because we have 2. That second one is called the blue moon. And we have a lovely visualization, as always.
Yeah.
Okay,
so we'll get the Earth pointed north here.
Okay, Earth is north.
And we'll give you the sun.
Okay, sun.
And we'll talk about, that first full moon is over here, right? Actually, as we know, this ball should be 20 feet that way, but we won't do that today.
Right, this is not to scale, everyone.
Yeah, not to scale. So, so as it goes around here this way, quarter moon comes around here, then we have the new moon on May 16th. So our new moon this month is on May 16th.
May 16th.
And we have this other quarter moon on this side, and then back to the full moon on the 31st.
Perfect.
So we always say that it goes 360 degrees, right? Mm-hmm. But the Earth is moving, right, pretty fast, 67,000 miles an hour. So the moon has to catch up with it. So it does its 360 in 27.3 days. Some people will say it's 27 days, but it's actually 29 and a half because the moon has to catch up to the Earth because of the Earth moving.
Fascinating.
So reference point.
Okay, I love it. So blue moon, it's a rare double full moon month, May's special.
And I got one more for you.
Oh, okay.
Reference.
Reference.
If I take this ball, I'll just throw it up to me, I'll catch it.
Okay.
Straight up, straight down. How far did it travel?
Oh, just there? A foot?
How far did it travel? 18 miles.
Oh.
The Earth moves at 18 miles per second.
Right now, we just traveled 18 miles.
Yeah.
Did you feel it, everybody?
You didn't, but that's the point, right? It's your reference.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So from outside, you'd see it traveling 18 miles in a big arc, right? Outside. So
oh my gosh, I love to see that. Okay, and that also just puts it into perspective with Artemis II, which we'll talk about more in a little bit with that traveling to and from planet Earth. Awesome. Okay, so there you go. There's your full moon. We also have a meteor shower happening this month, an impressive one, and it has to do with Halley's Comet.
It does. Halley's Comet, or Halley's Comet, some people say Halley's Comet, is coming around May 5th through 7th. Early morning, almost always, almost always in the east, you look east. Remember, it goes through the tail of Halley's Comet, every year. But Halley's Comet itself won't be back around here until 2061.
Okay.
So, but we still go through the tail every year. Also, somebody from, I think it was Philadelphia, asked, will we see it in Philadelphia? And yes, everybody on Earth essentially we'll see it. Sometimes it's better in the northern hemisphere versus the southern hemisphere, but the whole Earth goes through the tail. So,
cool.
yeah.
So bright lights flashing through the sky, the potential for 50 meteors an hour.
It could be. The big drawback is it's really close to the full moon, so just got to be there at the right time.
So maybe check it out on the 7th or 8th, maybe get a little bit away from the full moon.
Watch when the moon rises and sets, and yeah.
Okay, okay. And we need our dark sky etiquette, of course.
Dark sky etiquette.
No bright lights. We use red lights for dark sky etiquette.
This is the one that we use around telescopes quite a bit. So another hack from Christmas.
Okay.
So these are red light strings.
Okay.
That really help mark your, I'm covering this up because
Oh, I see. So this is something that we can lay a path, if you will.
yeah, you can lay a path, put it around your telescope or your chair or wherever you're sitting out in the yard. And
Nice.
Then you don't have to turn the lights on or use a flashlight or anything like that.
Every month you have a new dark sky etiquette red light hack. Love it. Okay. All right. So that is the meteor show for the month. Let's talk about some planets and constellations as well. We have Venus.
Yeah, Venus. So Venus has been very low in the sky, you know. So it'll start moving up as the evening goes on. The evening star will start to get higher in the sky as we go.
Okay. Perfect. And then Jupiter.
Yeah, Jupiter and the crescent moon come together and to make a, there's a name for it, like a smiley face or something like that. It'll be a crescent moon with the.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's May 19th. And then our morning sky, we'll be able to see Saturn.
Yeah, looking forward to Saturn and Mars coming back as the year goes by.
Amazing.
Get into a dark sky sight with it, you know, an average sized telescope will get us some pretty views.
I love it.
Yeah, you can see there. That's you can see the moon next to Jupiter there. That's
Okay.
really.
Good little map there.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's
Okay.
That's a good app to use, by the way, for
Cool.
night sky.
All right, now this one is for our astronomy influencers.
Right.
Would you consider yourself that category?
Sure.
Okay, there we go. Here's something fun to check out. This is in New York City, but we also will be able to see something in Seattle later this year. Instagram-worthy event, Manhattanhenge. What is this?
Manhattanhenge. So, you know, this would be where the sun sets between the buildings. Obviously, that's
Yep.
what the picture shows. So the streets of New York are really facing more northwest, southeast, as opposed to many of our streets like Yesler and Seattle, which face directly west and east. So that's why it's in May,
Okay.
Manhattanhenge.
Okay.
Because it's not directly west, their streets aren't directly west.
But we will be able to see our own version, the
Yes.
Seattle Henge.
Yes, Seattle Henge on September 21st.
Okay.
Oh, there it is, yeah. And you can look down Yesler. It should be really cool past the Smith Tower and some other buildings. Maybe not quite as dramatic as Manhattan, but I'm going to be out there hoping for a pretty sunset.
So we'll plan ahead for September 21st in Seattle for Seattle Henge, but if you want to see Manhattanhenge, that's May 28th and 29th, so that's at the end of the month.
Yes.
I'm sure
yes.
every city's got something similar.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I love it. Okay, we will look forward to that. Thank you so much, Keith. We're going to wrap it up right there. I'm going to bring you back later on. We're going to talk a little more Artemis. But first, our 4 NASA astronauts are back on the ground after a successful trip around the moon. We are going to take a look back on the Artemis II mission and what is already in the works for the next trip back to space. Welcome back to The Sky Above. History was made in April as 4 NASA astronauts went farther from Earth than any human ever before, taking a 10-day trip around the moon. Throughout that trip, I brought you live coverage of each of the milestones from launch to landing. Here's a recap of some of the highlights, starting with the successful launch on April 1st with guest Jim Hermanson from the University of Washington to help explain the launch. Reed Wiseman is the commander. Victor Glover is the pilot. Christina Cook and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen are the mission specialists. Cook will become the first woman to ever travel to the moon. Glover will be the first black astronaut to travel to the moon. And Hansen is the first Canadian to do so. The crew has been in quarantine for the last 2 weeks and talked to the press from that quarantine at Cape Canaveral on Sunday. Here is how they are feeling.
This is a test flight. This is the first time we're going to try this. This is the first time we're loading humans on board. And I will tell you, the four of us, we are ready to go. The team is ready to go and the vehicle is ready to go. But not for 1 second do we have an expectation that we are going. We will go when this vehicle tells us it's ready and when the team is ready to go.
I also hope we are pushing the other direction, that one day we don't have to talk about these first, that one day this is just, and I listen to this, that this is the human history. It's about human history. It's the story of humanity, not black history, not women's history, but that it becomes human history.
One thing I'd add first is the crew.
Yeah.
Is an inspiration to us all. You know, these people that are so dedicated, they've worked hard, they've trained hard, and I think we all, many of us aspire to that.
Yeah.
You know, if we cannot be an astronaut, we can support science or whatever we're doing in some other way. And so I would encourage young people everywhere, look at these examples and realize you can do anything if you set your heart and mind to it.
10, 9, 8, 7, RS-25 engines lit. 4, 3, 2, 1, booster ignition, and liftoff. The crew of Artemis II now bound for the moon. Humanity's next great voyage begins.
Roger, roll pitch.
Houston now controlling the flight of Integrity on the Artemis II mission around the moon.
They start vertically, then they bend over to start following the curve.
Integrity, AMT high.
Wow.
AMT high.
On time, passing 30 seconds into the flights. Integrity passes the alternate MECO. Target milestone. Mission Control Houston seeing good performance. Four main engines. Acceleration expected at the 2-minute 9-second
There they
mark.
go.
So what just happened here?
The two solid rocket boosters have been
See
dropped.
throttle down.
And where do they go?
And they can be recovered.
Okay. Do they land in the ocean?
Yeah.
Confirm
Okay.
separation.
Depending on the system.
Then Jeff Nunn from the Museum of Flight joined me to recap the trip and discuss the highlights ahead of the landing. As the spacecraft traveled farther into space, the crew made history, of course. Artemis II surpassed the record for the farthest distance from Earth ever traveled by humans, an emotional milestone, and a milestone that hadn't been broken since the Apollo era more than 50 years ago. And the moment the astronauts made history, going farther than any human ever before, they shared this powerful moment, suggesting to name a crater on the moon after Commander Reed Wiseman's late wife, Carol, who passed away from cancer in 2020.
A number of years ago, we started this journey in our close-knit astronaut family, and we lost a loved one. And there's a feature in a really neat place on the moon, and it is on the near side, far side boundary. In fact, it's just on the near side of that boundary. And so at certain times of the moon's transit around Earth, we will be able to see this from Earth. And so we lost a loved one. Her name was Carol, the spouse of Reed, the mother of Katie and Ellie. And if you want to find this one, you look at Glushko, and it's just to the northwest of that, at the same latitude as Ohm, and it's a bright spot on the moon. And we would like to call it Carol, and you spell that C-A-R-R-O-L-L.
The mission then entered one of its most intense phases, the planned communications blackout during the lunar flyby. As the Orion passed behind the moon, Mission Control temporarily lost contact with the crew. A tense but expected moment that tested systems and procedures ahead of future lunar landings. As they prepared for the flyby, the late former Apollo astronaut Jim Lovell woke the crew up with a message recorded in August of 2025, just a few months before his death. Take a listen.
Hello, Artemis II. This is Apollo astronaut Jim Lovell. Welcome to my old neighborhood. When Frank Borman and Bill Andrews and I orbited the moon on Apollo 8, we got humanity's first up-close look at the moon and got a view of the home planet that inspired and united people around the world. I'm proud to pass that torch on to you as you swing around the moon and lay the groundwork for missions to Mars for the benefit of all.
Okay, so that's a little fun. Let's talk about some of the science. Okay. When we went around to that dark side of the moon, it was really cool to see and hear a lot of the photos and visuals that they gathered and were describing. What were some of the big takeaways here that you witnessed?
I mean, of course, it was incredible to listen to them have these conversations, and we were watching live from the museum as they were flying around and describing what they were seeing. And I know that the science team found that incredibly valuable to not just have photos to interpret, but to be hearing the astronauts talking to each other about what they were seeing and talking to Mission Control about what they were seeing and really providing that added context for the images that they were capturing. And so when they were doing that flyby, they had the whole crew working together, and I love how this was working. They would have two of the crew at two of the windows in the Orion spacecraft, and one of them would be taking photos with a telephoto lens, and then the other one would be dictating and narrating what they were looking at. And then the other two crew members were providing support. They were communicating with Mission Control and helping to swap SD cards and things like that. And then they would trade off. So they made sure that all of the astronauts got time at the window looking at the moon and engaging with the photography tasks, and then also providing support.
And that mission has kind of two big goals. One, test the equipment and procedures. Can we go back to the moon? And that's part of a bigger picture goal, which we'll also talk about more later, of establishing a long-term presence on the moon. But two, of course, gathering images from the dark side of the moon, an area that's kind of a bit of mystery. One day after that flyby, new discoveries were already rolling in, like that discovery of color observed on the moon. This is a little bit of the Tuesday's press conference, so the day after that flyby, when NASA actually got to unpack some of those initial discoveries. Take a listen.
Impact flashes are caused by micrometeorite impacts hitting the moon, and they really help tell us about the dynamic lunar environment, which is, of course, also important when we think about future missions. I don't know if I expected to have the crew see any on this mission, so you probably saw the surprise and shock on my face. And though I was not in the science evaluation room, I heard that there were audible screams of delight. So, a very excited science community. You've heard me talk a lot about the importance that human explorers bring to scientific exploration, especially around observations of color. And so I'm sure all of you, like I was eagerly awaiting if they saw any other colors other than black, white, and shades of gray. You heard that they did indeed. Right away, they started describing the green around Aristarchus Plateau and different brown hues. And these colors really help tell us nuances about the chemistry of lunar material, especially the greens around Aristarchus. That was exciting. That's something that we can all see from here on Earth. And so I encourage you all to go out and look at the moon tonight and look for Aristarchus and imagine those green hues that the crew members saw.
A lot to unpack there.
Absolutely.
And that was just day one.
Yeah, in that lunar flyby, just I think less than an hour, really, in terms of a lot of their far side observations, they sent, I think, captured 175 gigabytes worth of image and audio data.
Wow.
Yeah. NASA and its researchers from around the world are going to be unpacking that information and the findings from it and making kind of new discoveries from that information for months and years to come.
And finally, astronaut So-Young Yi, who spent 11 days in space in 2008, joined me to help narrate the astronauts' very successful re-entry into the atmosphere as they splashed down off San Diego's coast on April 10th. Something that's been really interesting with this mission is there have been a lot of firsts. It was the first woman to the moon, the first black man to the moon, the first Canadian to the moon. You are a first. You're the first woman and South Korean to go to space, and the only still, correct? Yeah. What do these first milestones mean?
You have not only have a huge honor and privilege, but also have a huge accountability and responsibility. Because every single Korean little girl is watching at me and dream about to be the first engineers, first scientist, first astronaut, and that kind of thing. And then every day, literally every day, I think I should make my life more valuable and more accountable, more responsible, because I want to be the good example for them. I don't want to make them down.
Oh, I see some parachutes.
Yeah.
The first series of parachutes.
I feel so jealous
we're on
about them.
drones.
They have that kind of
And Houston, we're
video.
visual 2 drones out the window.
Oh,
Two
my
good drogue
goodness.
shoots. Next up,
We copy. We see them.
the deployment
Still,
of
they are so
pilot
fast.
parachutes that will pull the main
The
chutes out.
helicopter escorting them and then
Time to
following
splash
them.
down 3 minutes
So
and
if
10
I'm,
seconds.
3 minutes and 10 seconds till splashdown. Oh, right on track. So what I'm hearing and seeing is that first round of parachutes just deployed, and there will be 3 more main parachutes that deploy
Perfect descent
1
rate
minute
according to
after
flight
that
dynamics.
first round.
Oh,
they're the
got
main
it.
parachutes.
Major one,
Okay,
yeah.
so the 3 main ones,
Yeah.
so that'll really slow
Main
their
chute
descent.
deployed.
So those first one is a drogue, so kind
We're
of
at
like a
5,000
braking
feet.
parachute, supposed to tears and braking, but this one is like a really, really parachute.
Search
They
and
are
recovery
dangling
beacon
and
has
then
been
coming down to
activated
the ocean.
on integrity.
Yeah, beautifully deployed, all 3.
And
You
we
can
have
see
3
all
good
the
main
beautiful
shoots.
orange. Even outside is several thousand, inside is just exactly same like here.
Splashdown, sending
Oh yeah,
now.
splashdown.
Splashdown confirmed.
They came back home. Welcome home, everyone.
Splashdown confirmed at 7:07 p.m. Central Time, 5:07 p.m. Pacific Time.
That
From
could
the
not.
pages of Jules Verne to a modern-day mission to the moon, a new chapter of the exploration of our celestial neighbor is complete. Integrity's astronauts back on Earth.
An incredible, successful mission, but it is only the beginning. Still ahead, Artemis II is back on Earth, but we'll tell you when Artemis 3 and 4 will head to space and the ultimate goal of establishing a long-term presence on the moon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Keith Crum joining me once again to unpack what is next for our mission to the moon. Let's first talk about the timeline. Artemis 2, check, but we still have Artemis 3 and 4.
3 and 4 coming up in 2000. Yes, there it is, 2027 and 28. Artemis 3. This was an accelerated schedule. They added a test flight in here for Artemis 3 to test the landers, docking with landers. So that's the main difference between the top and the bottom.
And Artemis 3 will stay closer to Earth.
Yes, this will be in Earth orbit. I don't think we know yet exactly where it's going to be in orbit, but it'll be near Earth orbit, and it'll be really all about docking with those landers, 1 or 2, depending on whether the SpaceX one and the Blue Origin one go up ahead of Artemis 3.
And then 4 will land on the moon.
4 lands on the moon. There's a lot to do before 4 because each one gets a lot more complicated.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about some of those images that we discussed that were gathered. How are all of those images and that knowledge of the far side of the moon playing a role in what we do with 3 and probably 4 more so?
Yeah, I think, I think the main thing is just to figure out exactly where to land, obviously, but there's a lot of science behind those pictures. And, it was mentioned earlier about what materials are there and that kind of thing. So, they're going to be scrutinizing those for years to come. So.
And quickly, we've said long-term presence on the moon. These are all steps in that direction. Can you just quickly sum up why we're going to the moon and establishing this long-term presence?
Yeah, the moon's very important to our next step to the rest of the solar system. So we can make an argument about going to Mars, and you establish this moon base that's got some power source, like we talked about having nuclear power on the moon, and then transferring that whole system to Mars eventually as time goes by. So.
And these are all subjects we have discussed on The Sky Above on previous episodes. So if you missed that, check them out. Keith, thank you so much for your knowledge.
Great.
And thank you for sticking with us. That does it for us on this May episode of The Sky Above. I'm your host, Leah Pizzetti. We'll be back with you next month for a brand new episode.